This is like a geographical journey up the country, and we've come to the north of England. So please welcome to the stage, from Transport for the North, oh, what's quite going on out there, David Brown.
Thank you very much. I'll talk to you a little bit about Transport for the North. I think there'll be a number of themes that you've already heard from previous two speakers, which are very similar. So I'll just talk you through where we are at the moment, where we think we'll be in the next year or so, and some of the content of our strategy development work, which again bears a striking resemblance to what Maria was just saying. North of England is a big economic unit, 16 million people, just under 300 billion GVA is an economic unit. I'm started to realise that actually, as one economic unit, one entity, needs to punch its weight to ensure that it reduces that gap, that 37 billion GVA gap. But also, if it's to grow, the individual cities, the settlements, can't really compete on a global scale on their own, but can compete as an economic unit of 16 million people and just under 300 billion GVA. Transport for the North covers the whole of the north of England. So we have 19 local government partners, the local transport authorities. We have 11 local enterprise partnerships, as well as the development partners that we have in Highways England, Network Rail, High Speed 2, and the Department for Transport. And we have a very good working relationship with Midlands Connect. We have MOUs in place with Scottish Government and with Welsh Government to make sure, as we develop our economic and transport plans, we're not just doing it to the edge of those administrative boundaries, but we are planning the road and the rail network alongside the economic corridors that exist. We are a big spatial unit, as you can see from this, and we do represent a wide range of different communities, both rural, towns, and some large cities. We are part of the devolution agenda, so we have submitted to the Secretary of State our submission, our proposal for what a subnational transport body for the north of England would look like, and we expect to be made the first subnational transport body in 2017. And that's all about making the case for greater investment in the strategic transport network in the north of England, but making the decisions through national agencies like Highways England and Network Rail and High Speed 2 that are the right decisions for economic growth in the north of England. And it is about collaboration. For us, it's a real collaborative affair between the public and the private sector. So it's clear that Transport for the North, although we will be a statutory body, will actually be a public-private relationship between the businesses and the local government in the north of England. What space do we fit in? We sit in a place that does not duplicate what already happens at a local transport authority level. We're not looking to deliver highway schemes or rail schemes. We're not looking to duplicate what Highways England or Network Rail do. But we are looking to give a strong single voice to the north of England's requirements to act as a client for Network Rail and Highways England to ensure that their programmes, each 5 years, but also their future development programmes, reflect the needs of the north of England so that we can drive economic growth in the north. Our rationale is an economic rationale. So earlier this year we produced the first ever Northern Independent Economic Review, which identified these 4 prime sectors, these capabilities, that if the north could sell those capabilities as one economic unit on a global scale, we would see significant increase in our productivity. And some supporting and enabling capabilities around financial and professional services, education and logistics, which again, if we can get that right at a northern level, allow us to see significant jobs growth. And interestingly, you can see from the graphic on the right-hand side that actually our economic assets aren't all positioned in cities. That will be easy as a transport planner to put in place a transport network that just connected the big places. But our economic opportunities are presented and are positioned right across the whole of the north of England. From the west coast in Cumbria, right across to Teesside and Hull and Humber in the east side, we have expertise in advanced manufacturing, in digital energy generation, research, etc., right across. And our job is to put in place a strategic transport plan that unlocks significant GVA growth and also significant jobs opportunities. And again, you'll see that these timelines are very similar to what Martin and Maria were talking about. This is not a quick fix, both in economic terms, but also in strategic transport planning terms. This is the size of the opportunity that could be realised by 2050. And for me, that requires the strong leadership that TfN can give, but it also needs a consistent pipeline of development of schemes, not just for now or the next 5 years, but for that next 20 and 30 years. Something I think we do quite poorly in this country. And for the first time in the North, we are determined to deliver one consistent development programme for investment in strategic transport. Our transport plan will have that core objective about driving economic growth. It will then produce a phased or prioritised, a sequenced programme of things that we want to be delivered in each 5-year funding cycle. So we will be really clear what we want Highways England and Network Rail to include in their next 5 years funding cycle. What do we want them to do on their existing networks to get better use from it to deliver economic growth? But we will also identify more strategic and long-term ambitions for putting in place better use of existing but also new capacity on the rail and road network. And I think a unique selling point that strategic local, well, subnational transport bodies can bring is actually that ability to plan multimodally. So actually you can see the development that's already happening at our ports in the north of England, and we can see that what they need is a sustainable multimodal connectivity plan. So how will they get those big containers from the port of Liverpool to its markets in the north of England in a sustainable and multimodal way? And that's something that is not done at a national level, but can be done at a subnational level. We have a rounded programme of work that is looking not just at roads, strategic roads, but rail. So what can we get out of the existing rail system through influencing and the future letting of the Northern and Transpennine franchises? What can we get out of CP6 or 7, whatever they're going to be called in the future, as well as planning those long-term aspirational things? Freight and logistics is equally as important to us as passenger movements. We've seen the opportunity that freight and logistics can give in contributing towards that 850,000 job growth. And for the first time, we've produced a pan-northern freight piece of work which put the private sector at the heart of it. So we got the private sector to identify to us what they thought the size of that freight and logistics prize could be, and then we're translating that into multimodal transport solutions to get those freight wagons through to their end users. And finally, we're looking at the use of technology, an important role for information. How do we get information to people about what's happening now and in the future on the road network and the rail network? And equally, if people are travelling around by public transport, how can they do that in a smart and technologically advanced way? On roads, we are looking to see what we can get, what we can do better with Highways England on their existing network. But also we have 3 strategic studies in the north looking at how we can improve east-west connectivity. So looking at the A69, A66, and a potential new route, a Transpennine tunnel between Sheffield City region and Greater Manchester, as well as looking at a solution for what is called the Northwest Quadrant, commonly known to people in the north as the bit you always get stuck in whenever you travel around Greater Manchester and Merseyside or Lancashire. We're looking at that as well as looking at the role of the road network in its widest sense. And I think that really fits really closely with the work, the report that has been produced today. We look at roads not about whose they are or what they do. We look at them, how can we use them now to connect people and places, but also freight and goods to their end destinations. So we look at the A66 all the way through from the opportunities in the east at the Teesport all the way across to the west in connecting the nuclear fuel capacity that is there now and the jobs growth that will be in the future. And I think the way it's been presented by David today is absolutely spot on, that it's a framework to be adapted and used by subnational transport bodies for their end purposes. So the work that we're doing with our local transport authorities looks at these criteria to identify what a major road network for the north of England would look like. I absolutely agree with David again that you've got to look at this in a holistic way, and then what we need is the long-term funding commitment to enable the north, through Transport for the North, to do the right things, not just on the strategic road network, but on the road network which is important for our future economic growth. And there are efficiencies for us and central government, but also there's the ability for us to specify what we need that network to do, not what people in central government believe that we should be doing with it. Again, we're on a journey, very similar, that we've got a lot of work going on at the moment in developing the strategic transport plan. The outcome from the strategic road studies and our Northern Powerhouse rail network are due to be shared with our politicians at the end of this year. And then next year, we're producing the first outline of our strategic plan, as well as hoping to be a subnational transport body during 2017. And we believe there is an absolute role for subnational transport bodies, STBs, to make the right decisions for the area that they represent by giving one political and business voice and acting as a strategic client, a commissioner of Highways England and Network Rail to ensure that they are producing plans that reflect the necessities of those STB areas. We've got a busy year. We've already had a busy year. We've been working at this for 1 year. We've got an incredibly busy year next year. And I think it's the opportunity for us to work with other STBs, the private sector and the local politicians to ensure that our plan reflects the requirements of the North and that we encourage central government to allow STBs that space to commission and act as the client for national bodies. Hopefully that's given you a flavour for what Transport for the North has been doing, what we're doing in the next 3 or 4 months, but what we're doing next year. And I think it's a key time, really, in both the devolution agenda, but also the reframing and getting the most in the long term out of our strategic road and our strategic rail network. Thank you very much.